we both use Adobe Character Animator, don't we?
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
How did you come about it? How did you find out about this program?
So I actually, within my first year of making content on YouTube, I went to a little trip with some friends up to New York, in which we had the honor of visiting the channel federator offices, and we talked to a lot of people who were in the industry, other animators, other content creators, and we even talked to like people who were specializing in working with YouTubers and
Yeah.
internet content creators. And he was talking to us as YouTube animators, and he was like, "Hey, have you guys ever heard of Adobe Character Animator?" I was like, "No, what's that?" It's like, "Well, it sounds like the perfect type of thing
Yeah.
for your style of videos." Because like I see a lot of people doing PNG tubers or stuff like that,
Yeah.
which didn't even have a name back then, where like people just had like uh, 50 different still images with their character with different arm positions,
Yeah.
eye facial expressions, and all that. And that's basically what I was doing, but I didn't like backlog all of my poses in advance because I was using Movie Maker at the time,
Oh yeah,
and I
you
would
can't
just
go
like,
wrong with Movie Maker.
yeah, and so I had to create the because you can't like layer footage in Movie Maker, so
No,
I had to
no.
create my entire scene, character, and background every time to
To
uh
complete the video.
put
Yeah.
into the timeline. Yeah, exactly. So I was doing that. So I wasn't even like having the backlog of characters to like just plop into my scene. I was like literally creating the whole PNG and putting that as like a finished frame, basically like cell animation but on computer because it's Movie Maker and it was
Yeah.
a nightmare.
Yeah.
So he told me about character animator. I was like, wow, that sounds amazing for when I have money and for can afford um you know
Creative Suite.
an
Adobe,
Adobe
yeah,
product.
yeah.
Yeah, so I like put it in the back of my mind. I like watched some of the tutorials made by OK Samurai back in the day, and I was like, man, this would be amazing. I already know how to use it now, but I just need to afford it. And luckily enough, when I went into my current university, they for the School of Visual Arts, they basically gave us the entire Adobe suite for a fraction of the price, $100 for the entire suite.
Really?
And character animator was on there, and I was like, okay, time to shine. And I made my first character within a month
Yeah.
of actually getting my hands dirty and working with the actual program.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I know. You mentioned OK Samurai. Yeah, I've spoken to him a few times over Instagram. He's pretty cool. He's definitely
Yeah, yeah.
the one to go to for tutorials. I've done one tutorial on how I personally use Adobe Character Animator on my channel. It's just like a
Yeah, I watched it.
oh,
Yeah,
did you? How did you
it's
think of
good.
it?
I thought it was great, and I learned a few tricks I didn't use myself. I forgot which ones specifically, but like I haven't necessarily used them yet. But I like learned
Yeah.
a lot, even though I consider myself quite an adept or an advanced
Yeah.
user. And speaking of tutorials, I actually it's funny you mentioned that because I'm actually currently preparing for a class on Thursday where I will be teaching character animator to other students. My professor came to me and
Really?
said like, "Hey, can I give you $80 to teach a class on character animator? I just want to like show my students something else. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be like teaching these freshmen and sophomore about character animator because my school doesn't have many animation classes
Hmm.
nor a lot of animation professors. And I'm like, hey, give us a hand here. So I'm going to do that on Thursday, and I'm preparing for it, and it's very exciting. And I
That's really
actually want to
cool.
see if I can do that
And you're getting
again. Yeah,
paid. And you're getting paid on
I'm
top of
getting paid.
that. That's pretty cool. But yeah, how I found out about it was um, I graduated from university 2017, and unfortunately, part of the reason why I created Culpamland is because I needed to teach myself certain skills that they didn't teach in university. So,
Right, right.
like the industry standard, After Effects, Illustrator, Photoshop, the whole deal. And I actually had a previous channel. It's still on YouTube. It's so bad, and I used again. It was just like your typical storytime animation, just without the white marshmallow boys. And I realized, oh, I spent a month creating a 5 minute video that's not really good. So uh,
Exactly.
yeah, so looking at the whole creative suite on Illustrator on Adobe, I saw character animator. I was like, oh, I bet you it's going to be like this really cheap looking uh, like almost like Flash, just put the pinpoints on the elbows and the arms and that's it. But then they started showing you the webcam feature. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That saves a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so I just got acquainted to that. Again, this is Corpelman is still me learning all the industry standard stuff. So I tapped into Blender. You know Blender, the 3D
Yeah.
program I use for the backgrounds. I tapped into that, and I wasn't. I still had no idea what this was, what this whole Corpelman thing was. I knew that I graduated from a prestigious university and they didn't teach us anything. That's all I knew. So I just had to find out what they're looking for in the industry. And also during that time, I was in a theatre company. So I was doing some acting here and there. And I just kind of invited some of the actors on there onto the show. So some of the characters are voiced by them. I was like, I'm doing this thing. I'm
Ah.
doing this thing. Like, do you want to be part of it? I have no idea what it is. And they were really intrigued by how it works, and they get their own cartoon character. And just I finally figured out what it is, what the whole Coldman thing is. And since then, like I'm sure you noticed, I don't know if you are quite active on YouTube, but I'm now doing YouTube Shorts as opposed to actual full videos.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that.
Okay. That's because I noticed, when you type in The Simpsons and like
Hmm.
Family Guy and like all these animated series, you always get this compilation video of the best of
Hmm.
Millhouse, the best of uh, Mr. Burns and whatnot. So I thought, why not I just animate the funny, quotable moments and save people time? Because I noticed that when I would ask my sisters, oh, like, could you watch my next video? Just for like feedback. And they were like, I'm not ready. I'm just not ready. I was like, what do you mean you're not ready? It's a cartoon. And then I realized it feels like you're studying for the video. You're not really enjoying it. So
Right.
with that in mind, I cut it drastically to 15 to 30 seconds, talking about subjects with the title kind of giving away what it is. I think the latest one was POV of your toxic friend, and the whole bit is you think you're all suavemente, all sexy, but actually all goofy when you talk to other people. I don't know if you saw that one. That was on Friday.
I did.
Yeah. And I plan to do it every Friday. The shorts now, because now people like to people like to predict things. I notice, instead of, oh, when's the next video coming out, it'll be out whenever. They don't really want to hear that.
Right.
They want to hear, oh, it'll be out on Friday, great, new Copeland episode.
Yeah, it creates that relationship between the audience and the creator where it feels like there's more security.
Yeah.
Not in the sense like, oh, am I going to survive now?
Yeah.
It's security as in like security. Like you get that cozy feeling. You're just like some ritual to your life, and it's kind of like how TV shows operate. Like, hey, every Friday we have this and that.
Yeah.
But it does create that relationship and that little bit of extra feeling like, oh, I know what to expect from this content creator,
Mm.
what length of video, what style of video, what kind of subjects, and when I'll see some of these. Like even some content creators only do one videos a month. Every month, I'm still waiting. Like, oh, is it that time of the month yet for that video to come up?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I noticed, like, especially with like the big YouTubers, even though they got a whole team, there's I think because with those kind of content creators, there is a fine line between content and producing something that they love. Because when you think of content creating, you just think of shit posting, where you just upload anything 3 times a day, as opposed to like, say for instance, the Odd Ones Out. I'm sure he
yeah,
doesn't. He does not want to just upload any old thing. He wants to upload something that he's proud of. Hence why
right,
I've noticed that they're actually taking a bit longer now. And I noticed he's doing YouTube Shorts as well to cut in between. Originally, it was a month.
exactly.
It was a month, but now it's 2 months. You know. But why did you start talk about the Odd Ones Out and Coldplay? But why did you personally start creating content on YouTube?
So it's kind of like I don't exactly know where the story starts. I'd say it started back when I was a senior in high school. So like the last year of American high school,
Yeah.
I was that at the beginning of that year, I had just started sketchbooks, and I wanted to like keep up sketchbooks and like complete them all the way through. Because I hear about like all these other artists in my art class like having trouble like starting sketchbooks and
Yeah.
then never finishing them. So I just challenged myself to like start and finish a sketchbook, and by the end of that year, I finished three 80-page sketchbooks.
Okay.
And throughout those, I was, coming up with my own characters and stuff like that. Steven, Mr. Prime, and like so my personal avatar, an edgy, you know, character created by a high schooler,
Yeah.
and by the end of the year, I was like, hey, I could like make funny comics with these characters. So I tried doing web comics
Mm.
for about three comics over the course of 3 months, and tried to like do a Facebook page and like have those comics on Tapass and others.
Yeah.
And I honestly did not enjoy it.
Okay.
Um, I did not enjoy it at all. I didn't enjoy making those comics. And so I then found the Odd Ones Out's channel, and I was like, hey, this is kind of the type of humor I want to do.
Yeah.
But also I don't want to do comics. And like, I kind of got inspired by James, and I kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't the first like animator I saw,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he was the one that was like, hey, this could be accessible. And so I made my first video about some of my sketchbook pages. I had all these sketchbook pages that were like hours and a year's worth of content
Yeah.
that didn't have any place to go on. So I wanted to like make basically a sketchbook walkthrough and in the style of a story time animated video.
Okay.
So I did that for a while, and that's how my channel started until I actually brought in Mr. Prime and like the ideas I had for my webcomic
Yeah.
into life with the character dynamics and the banter and the lore that came with it.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Because I looking when I was looking when I was creating these questions, I was looking at your channel. I noticed there was some narrative in there. Was
Right.
that part of the comics bleeding into the YouTube?
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely was. I wanted to like start off by having it in the background, then coming it being the full force of the YouTube channel. But I realized that would basically change the entire genre of my channel basically overnight.
Yeah.
And some people will like it. Some people would just and come back for the previous content.
Yeah.
So it might like not jive as well as I wanted it to. And I noticed that when I was making the switch, it was putting some people off from my channel altogether because they're like, oh wait, I don't understand the lore of
Yeah.
these characters.
Yeah.
It's a little bit daunting. So like they didn't it didn't hook people. So I did for now at least. I'm putting the lore and stuff like that in the background and having it. If I'm going to bring it back, I'm going to have it be more entangled with the actual content, as in like the topics of the videos, rather than be okay, we did a story time, now let's focus on this made up character's backstory. Like,
Mm.
that's very jarring for a lot of people and for like the identity of my channel.
Yeah. Again, that's also the problem with content creating because it's very permissionless. You don't need permission to create anything, so you can. Because Coldplan went through that at one stage where I was kind of wandering off the mission. I was kind of going, when in a video game when you have to return to the battlefield, I was kind of going
Right.
outside the perimeter. But I think it is at the end of the day, it is to an extent what the audience wants. Yes, you are the one creating it, but if you do want to gain an audience, you do need to accommodate to a particular niche. Otherwise, as you said,
Exactly.
certain people will leave, some might stay. Um, but which is funny because, as far as I know, originally you're from France, correct?
I am born and raised.
Born and raised in France. When did you move to America?
I moved to the United States about 10 years ago now when I was 14 years old. I was in the middle of eighth grade, I believe, when I made the switch. And yeah, so it's been a while since I've lived in France, but a lot of my channel is based around the fact that I'm French and my
Yeah.
French identity. A lot of people, when they first meet me, can't even tell I'm French because I have a perfect American accent from my mother's side, who is the American parent.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, so my dad's French, my mother's American. So I moved here. People thought I was an American, but I didn't feel American. I didn't grow up around these people, around these cultural values, around these norms, and so it really put me off and it made me feel alienated, even though I'm a white guy with an American accent. So like I actually should be treated different or be viewed differently than Americans who just have like a different skin color and treated
Yeah.
like strangers by their own country. So like I have this kind of like disconnect, this kind of story you should talk about. And I like, for example, one thing I noticed is like when I would see a cultural behavior and see it as being American, I would like then meet a person of color who'd identify that same cultural behavior as a white people thing.
Okay.
Um, so like there's like this disconnect like between because people define each other by how they're different from themselves. So for example, a person of color will see a behavior and see that the person that is different from them is white, so it might be tied to their whiteness.
Yeah.
Or I would see it on the other hand, like I'm white like that person, but that person's American, so I would tie that difference to the fact that they're American.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to build my channel around that, and I went off course with my lore, and I'm trying to bring it back currently. I'm kind of doing a soft reboot on my channel,
Okay.
and making the whole, bringing back the whole soul of my channel being the differences between France and America.
Yeah.
And I'm creating a new series called French Splained, which is I define it as the condescending explanation from a French person typically to an American, from a viewed as pretty patronizing. So it's kind of like a play on word of mansplaining
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Because French people are stereotyped to be like snobs in America, so I'm gonna like play on that.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned about the different cultures because I am English, but I'm also half Spanish and German. So for a very long time.
That's a lot of halves.
Sorry.
That's a lot of halves.
Yeah.
Half Spanish, half English, half German.
Yeah. So originally I'm from England, from London, but because my mother is Spanish, I took on more of her genes, so I got a dark skin complexion. So I don't, according to some people, I don't look British. To some people I do, to some people I don't. Some people call me black, some people call me Middle Eastern. So I've been called everything. But when I moved to Spain, because I lived in Spain for a bit, again, it was just a different cultures where most people, in Spain are white. But because
Right.
people think that being white is skin tone, it's all about ethnicity because Spanish people are tanned, like myself. So being in Spain, you didn't really get the whole segregation. But when I came back from Spain back to England in 2008, because of the recession happened, we had to fall back.
Yeah.
I was getting called everything, every racist name you could think of. I was getting called that. Every racist name just because of my dark skin complexion. So there is that. I totally understand that whole segregation of, even though you're white, there is this almost like this sub level of like difference. So it's not just skin tone or ethnicity, but it's culture, and even in that, there's probably a segregation because, for instance, most of my friends now, they loved university and the lifestyle. Going out clubbing till 4 a.m. So there's also a subcategory in that. Which pub do you want to go to? I want to go to this one. No, I don't. So so it's just this forever ending or never ending. Sorry, this never ending pathway of just constant. Are you on my team or not? Are you Xbox or are you PlayStation kind of thing? It's just like everyone
I know.
Everyone thinks that they're a part of a team, and some people in my university were. If you won't die for me, therefore you're my enemy. I'm like, I just said hello to that person.
Right.
I don't need to take a bullet for you. Just because you have an issue with that person doesn't mean that I have an issue with that person. I'm gonna talk to whoever I want to talk to. I'm sure maybe you've been in these situations where I want to say they're toxic situations, and Culpamland will cover these in the videos ahead. Where and the reason why I made these characters species, like for amphibians, birds, mammals, is because I want to bring up the whole racism, different cultures where, oh, you can't talk to him, he's a reptile. Yeah, but you kind of look like a reptile, don't you? So stuff like that. Because I've been in that situation where, oh, like I had a friend who would say, oh, you do look like you're Middle Eastern, and this is one of the things where
Right.
you don't want to say I don't, because that's not a bad thing, you know.
Right, right.
But
It's
how?
like, being called gay, but like you don't
Yeah,
mind,
literally,
you
yeah,
know,
literally,
people of
yeah,
different sexualities, but you don't want to like be misunderstood or something like that. Like, you have no problem with being called gay. You don't think that's an insult, but it is just incorrect. So you want to correct them, but you don't want to come off as someone for like reacting negatively
literally,
to being called the wrong thing. Right.
literally, yeah,
Like a
literally,
dance.
yeah, yeah, literally, yeah. God, but I do like the fact that because I noticed with your art design, you have been rebooting it. Like the characters look more, your avatar especially looks more defined. It looks more established in that sense.
Right. Yeah. So like one of my main issues, like there's a couple of reasons why I changed the art style, but the main one is just for simplicity's sake. For creating the assets, creating new characters and stuff like that, I wanted to make it more simple, and at the same time be able, like before, like was a fully colored character, with so many like different physics systems going throughout his hair
Yeah,
and stuff like that. A lot of details, a lot of hair strands, a lot of uh, clothing aspects
mm.
to remember. And if I were to create a new character for the one scene, it'd just take me like 3 days to do. Whereas now with this art style, I can create a new character within a day,
Yeah,
or a half day if I'm like basing it off of one of my background characters, which are like blank slates that I can add whatever clothing I want to. Um, and so one reason that came around at the same time that I didn't thought when I first started to recreate that art style is for the background characters. Everybody has white skin, as in like white, as in the lack of color
yeah,
or all the colors combined, however you want to see it. It's undefined. It's like kind of like a newspaper comic.
yeah,
It's kind of reminiscent to my sketchbooks, which I do a lot of ink drawing with. So it's mostly just black lines with the white background. So the reason all those characters are quote unquote white is not to represent the white race. It's actually to be undefined. And I can add extra features like hair being a different texture. I can
yeah.
add different mouth shapes or stuff like that to give more definition that will like reference another race if I need to, or if I don't need to, I can just like randomize a character and still have someone unique without being specifically, I'm going to tie this to
Mm.
this specific race or another. If I do want to define a character, it's usually going to be based on nationalities because of this, the subject of my channel. So like a cowboy hat for an American character, a beret for a French guy,
Yeah.
and so on.
What would you do? What would you
Um,
do for an English guy?
for an English guy, maybe a monocle. It really depends. Like if I'm doing like a joke about aristocrats,
Yeah,
I'd probably do like some guy in a fancy outfit from the Renaissance, or with a crown or something like that.
yeah.
But if I'm gonna do just like an English bloke, again, maybe not necessarily to add any physical features as long as the voice is a British person speaking.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, if it's gonna be a caricature, yeah, I would probably do a monocle or
Okay.
something like that, or a top hat.
Yeah.
Um,
God. But because, yeah, I definitely like the new approach because it seems like there's more relatability to that. So you can also have people who aren't
exactly.
necessarily French living in America. You have maybe someone who's living in Japan from a different culture, and they can say, "Oh, I went through this," and there's like this community of people who are, well, I don't want to say culture shocked, but along those lines of different routines, different customs. It
Yeah,
was like that when I was in Spain, like because in England everything is quite. England's very weird because things can be really strict, but at the same time they can be like swept under the carpet. Even
that's a bummer.
even with my Spanish friends who came, because most of my friends from Spain came to England because like for university degrees and jobs, they they still have the customs of you would never ever see them working over the weekend. Don't you dare ask them to work over the weekend. They'll have a panic attack. You know, like a bank holiday, like because the weekend is sacred to the Spanish man. Don't you dare take the weekend away from him. You know, and what was with me, I'm there just like, yeah, I do my 9 to 5 job, but then straight after that, I do Culpamland until 1 or 2 in the morning, plus the weekend. You know, and there is that cultural difference of, oh, you work a bit too hard, and I say, well, I don't think you're working enough. You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. That's kind of the main takeaway I want people to have from my channel is like being able to identify or to open their minds to, especially in America. The United States is a very ethnocentric country.
yeah,
People have that mindset that why like they don't even like think about questioning the way they do things or think to themselves that people from other country do things differently.
yeah,
Like one example that I usually use right off the bat to kind of show this mindset to Americans is like it's the Pledge of Allegiance. It's for a non-American. The Pledge of Allegiance is a little poem or something that people say every morning before the first class in the schools. They basically like recite their allegiance to the flag of the United States.
so wait, that's
And there's
do you guys actually do that? It's not just in the movies.
yeah, no, yeah. There's a flag in every single classroom in every school across the United States, and every morning, everybody has to stand up at the same time, put their hand on their heart, turn to the flag, and recite, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Jesus.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." We recite that every morning in America. And when I first moved here in the United States, I did not understand what the hell was going on. I thought I was like being punked, or if this was like a cult. And like when I asked someone like, "Hey, what's going on?" It was like, "What do you mean, what's going on?" I was like, "Well, what the fuck was that? Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck was what?" The thing you just did, you like stood up and like zombies staring at the flag, just were like reciting that you pledge allegiance to it. You're not even 18. You can't even vote. What are you pledging allegiance to? And, like, they did, and then they're like, "Wait, you don't do this in France or wherever you're from?" And I'm like, no, this is not normal. Like, this is North Korean level.
Yeah, I was about to say, it sounds
Um,
quite Russian.
yeah, so like they didn't even think about that. Like, and like for example, with Russia, America like are always demonizing them and all that
Yeah.
for being a communist country and like taking away freedoms, but they don't even realize they're being brainwashed since they're in grade school.
Yeah, yeah. It does.
So I bring this up to Americans, and that's exactly what a way that I use to kind of like open their eyes to the fact that their normal is not everyone's normal.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Because that sounds very weird. Like I don't even know the British national anthem. Like we don't sing that every day. You know, like maybe back when I was younger, when I was in private school, like we did used to go to chapel and sing hymns, but that's not a custom that every English person does. You know, it's just
Right.
you just went to a fancy school and that was it. That stopped quite soon when we grew up. But when for how long do you do the Pledge of Allegiance for? God, even saying it, I feel like I've just joined a cult or something. How long? To what age? Do you have?
Until you graduate from high school, so like from first grade to the 12th grade.
So what age would you be? Because it's different here in England with the grade system.
Okay, so from 6 years old to 18 years old.
Oh, 6 years old. Jesus.
Yeah, they start young, and technically, I have to say this to be fair, no one can force you to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but some professors, depending also which district you're living in, if it's more Republican or Democrat,
Yeah.
you can get like suspended, or you can get like just reprimanded, or get like a stink eye from not doing it.
Stink guy.
Some liberal teachers will be like a little more lax and be like, "Hey, why aren't you doing the Pledge of Allegiance?" Yeah, other teachers will be really hard ass about it and will report you to your parents or something like that. Like if you're living in a very evangelical, like
Yeah.
super Christian
Yeah.
area, you might have more troubles than in the liberal town that I lived in, where they were like fine with me not doing it because I never pledged allegiance to the French flag. Why would I do it for the American flag? You know?
Yeah. So would they have a problem if I went there? Well, I don't go to school there, but is there any situation where in a public, like a public situation where a similar, not quite the Pledge of Allegiance, but a certain custom that is
Oh, for example, football games. like American football
Yeah.
games, they have the national anthem play before
Yeah.
each game, I
Yeah.
believe, or something like that. And there was like a huge deal when one of the football players, instead of standing up and having his hand on his heart,
Mm.
he took a knee, and
Oh
he
yeah.
was doing it for political reasons because he wanted to make a stand for
Yeah.
violence, police brutality, and violence on people of color.
Mm.
Um, and it made the headlines, and everybody lost their shit.
Really?
So if you're in the stands and like you didn't stand up right away, maybe you get some stink eye from gun-loving Americans or something like that. But they won't like kick you out of the stadium for that. I don't believe.
Okay.
But it did like make a huge freaking deal when that football player did that. Like the vice president Mike Pence at the time was in the stadium, and he left the stadium because he was so offended
Jesus.
by the idea that someone took a knee during the national anthem.
So there definitely is like this culture difference that I think that's the one thing that I like about your channel, where you're kind on this, I want to say kind of on the fence onto cultures, because
Right.
you have, of course, being French, born and raised, as you say, but America in some sense living there. Would you say that you have, I don't want to say accepted the American culture, but do you kind of see like, okay, I understand why they did that, or are you still like, no, the second I can, I'm going to go back to France, or do you reckon America's like your new home?
Well, as of now, America is my new
Yeah.
home, but I am thinking about moving back to France basically every day.
Okay.
Um, to some degree, I have internalized American culture, as in like I am aware of the habits,
Yeah.
but doesn't mean I understand the habits. And every so often, when I'm like in a place that I consider myself safe, like among friends or new friends or acquaintances or coworkers, I'll ask a question when the subject will come up, like, "Hey, why does America do this? Why do Americans do this thing?" Or
Yeah. So on topics such as this, talking about like your personal relationships and the French culture, uh, being French, talk about the French culture, and uh, with your, I'm guessing, predominantly an American audience. What challenges do you face when writing script, should we say, for your next videos, when you really want to talk about something French to your American audience? What hurdles do you have to come over, do you think?
I'm so glad you asked that. So for a long time, I kind of tried to play, uh, like I tried to play to the Americans and like what they'd be interested in. So like I made videos about like school lunches, France versus America. That was my
Yeah, I
second
remember
video,
that
I
one.
believe, and
Yeah.
the first, yeah. And I would try to like play off kind of light topics to kind of like joke about, but more recently, and you'll see this in my next few videos, I'm thinking about taking the gloves off and just be like, hey, if they're gonna be mad about it, they'll be mad about it.
Okay.
I know I'll be fine. And when it comes to like presenting something to Americans, I will be addressing them as a French person talking to Americans, even full knowing that I am technically American as well because I got the citizenship from my mother,
Yeah.
and I speak the language and I've lived here for over a decade, and so on. I will still be talking from a French person because I had to learn this thing added to the person I was already once I was raised in France.
Mm.
All this American stuff is added on top of the French foundations. So even though I understand them and I internalize them, I still kind of talk about American issues as an outsider because I was raised differently. And in that same notion, talking as a French person to Americans, I actually am creating a second channel, which will be live at the same time as my next video comes out,
Okay.
which is basically not going to be a dub of my current channel, but it will be a French adaptation of my channel. So I'll be talking as a Frenchman to other French people, a French audience,
Mm.
from a perspective of a French person who lived in the United States for the past 10 years. I won't be talking about France to French people. I'll be talking about America
To French people.
as a French person
Okay.
who's been living in America for all this time. And these videos are basically going to be on the same topic. They'll be mostly similar, but every time I have to mention a subject, for example, the metric system versus the imperial system,
Yeah.
I'll have to explain what the imperial system is to French people, but I won't have to do that for the American version. I can just like go on and make the jokes I have.
Yeah. Okay, that makes.
But for like the French version, I'll,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's quite interesting having two channels, and because it makes sense because you know there are two particular niches that you can accommodate to. Like,
exactly, yeah.
do you have like an influx of French people who are saying, please tell me more about America, or is it just because you just have these pet peeves that only French people would understand?
So yeah, that's this is mostly the second one. Like I got back in touch with my best friend from France a few months ago, and that's kind of what gave me the idea. Like he asked me, like it had been like 6 years since we last talked, so he asked me like, "Hey, tell me more about living in America. Tell me how it's been." And I tell him these things, and it's like, "Holy shit, that's fucking stupid as hell. Like, tell me more." So like, okay, there's an audience here. There's absolutely an audience here. So I am making that channel basically based off of my conversation with my French friend who wanted to learn more about America.
Mm.
And the second thing that inspired me was this French comedian, Gad Elmaleh, who I've been following since I was a kid. Recently moved to the United States from France and started making jokes at the expense of Americans in his stand-up routines, but he also started doing stand-up in English
Okay.
and would make jokes at the expense of Americans to Americans. So he did the same stand-up special, one in French, one in English, one he did in Quebec, one he did in New York,
Yeah.
and there was like this dichotomy. The material might have been recycled, but the conclusion or the angle he was coming at was different because he was presenting it to a different culture. So that's kind of what I'm doing with my second channel, and it has like its own character, own protagonist, or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it,
Yeah.
own avatar. It'll have its own personality, own aesthetic, even though the animation style will be the same because
Yeah.
it's just cheaper to draw the backgrounds in one style and keep it similar across the the, the videos and the channels.
That makes sense. You want to be efficient and all that. So
Correct.
with both of your channels, because both of them have different niches, go to your main one first. If you could describe your channel in 3 words, what would it be?
Uh, you see, this is a question I saw in advance and I didn't know how I was going to answer. um, so if I were to describe it in 3 words to advertise my channel to other people, I would say that it's aggressively neutral and sarcastic.
Aggressively neutral. Okay. And sarcastic. And what about
Yeah,
your new
or
channel?
sassy.
Yeah.
Uh, the the new channel. Now this one's a little less a neutral. It's more, I guess it's aggressively biased,
Yeah, I was about to say.
aggressively biased and sassy.
Okay. So still sassy either way.
Sassy, sarcastic. You can put one for either. It's pretty interchangeable.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I suppose the channels are like even though they are filling in different niche for a different culture, they are on the same topic, um, with the same contempt for the American culture that I would be discussing for that particular video.
Okay. Would you say the fact that you're able to just come up with an idea quickly, or not quickly, but like over time, and then create a new channel without a business plan or any income or like a startup fee, do you reckon that's one of the best things about creating content on YouTube?
I would agree. Yeah. A lot of people I see that create GoFundMe's or or stuff like that to start YouTube channels, saying like, oh, I need to buy all this equipment and all that, and I can't buy this equipment unless I get funded by crowdfunding site. Like that's so weird to me. That's so weird. Like
Yeah.
no, you can do it with whatever crap you have in your back. I started off with Movie Maker, a freaking Movie Maker, and a $50 drawing tablet. Um, Eventually you will earn money either from YouTube or just your day job. And if you care about the channel and want to make it grow,
Yeah.
you will invest some amount of money. I bought myself a Surface Pro to draw on instead of a crappy tablet
Yeah.
because I can draw directly on the screen without having to spend $2,000 on a Cintiq, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Definitely shop around. I got $1,000 for a computer and the drawing tablet attached into one device instead of buying a $3,000 computer and a $2,000 Cintiq screen.
Mm.
Like, yeah, you don't have to have any income or money to start a YouTube channel unless as long as you have like the bare minimum of internet connection and
Yeah.
a keyboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you don't need much if you can already like if you can make a GoFundMe page for your channel,
Mm.
you definitely have the tools to start it already. You don't need to get money from other people, even though that'd be nice, um, ideally.
Yeah,
But create your content if it's good. You have a opportunities to create a Patreon or a Ko-fi page or something like that. It's
okay, because I've noticed that I've seen a few people who want to start animation on YouTube, and they're doing all these, like you said, GoFundMe, crowdfunding, and it's like they're spending more time advertising the GoFundMe page than actually learning how to make a proper video. Because what's the point of earning all that money when you don't know what to do with it? If you were to get it, and then
yeah.
because I think the problem is with people like that. Some people it works, like Has Been Hotel, but what the thing is with a sort of people is that going back to the word permissionless, meaning you don't need any permission, you don't need you could just create, like you and I could literally just create a channel right now, and that's that.
Right. Yeah.
You can just go overboard, and you can make it for you as opposed to an audience, and that was always my concern with Culpamland. I had to make sure that I was doing it for the audience. I was always, even in 2019 when I first started out, I did not do any video tags. I did not promote it at all. I invited people via Instagram to watch it and give feedback, almost like in a video game where you have beta tests and alpha tests.
Right.
It was like that because all of 2019 was just for the technology, because when I first started out, the technology did not exist. The technology that I have now for Blender, using like the volumetric lighting, making it look all hot, like a utopia, that technology did not exist when I first started out. I had to wait, but I'm not going to sit.
Right.
I'm not going to sit here with a thumb up my ass and wait for it. No, I'm going to create. So I first started out by rendering one image as the background, and then putting that on After Effects as a picture, and then putting the PNG sequence inside as though, like, forced perspective, as though they're actually inside. You could tell that they were just stuck on. But from that knowledge, I notice every 2 to 3 months, Culpamland keeps on changing for the better, because I keep on finding out what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was, I don't know if you said that you're learning 3D stuff, didn't you?
I did, and I kind of hate them doing it, but I'm trying my best.
Do you know bump mapping? Bump texture mapping?
No.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah? That's when you have a texture and it kind of interacts, like say if you have brick and you have all like the grout and like the indentations, so when you pass a light on it, even though it's a texture, it would react as though it's a real object. Do you know that?
Yeah.
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 So I learned that as well. And it's one of those things where I remember when I first started out, even using Illustrator, using the curve tool, it took me ages to use it. Now I'm just going, just to create a new character. So it is one of those things where you just need to do it. And I'm sure you'll agree with me on that advice. You just need to start.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because you mentioned Has Been Hotel, how crowdfunding sometimes work. VisiPop has been making animations for freaking years before she even started that crowdfunding. Like, she wasn't the reason her crowdfunded work, as opposed to some guy on TikTok saying like, "Hey, I have a GoFundMe, go fund my gaming channel."
Yeah.
VisiPop actually, did the work and had a portfolio to show to the audience to like, "Hey, this is what I have been making. Here's the concept for what I want to make.
Yeah.
If you want to fund this." I can put my money where my mouth is. That's, she had built a reputation for herself as a person who actually produced content in the first place.
Yeah.
As opposed to like these 18-year-olds just got out of high school like thinking they're going to become internet famous or next PewDiePie or Jacksepticeye. No, that's not how it works. Do something. Have a personality.
Yeah.
Don't use the content creating as a get rich quick scheme. That's not if that's the reason why you make content in the first place, that's you should probably not even bother, you know? Like I started off making sketchbooks just for myself and I was like,
Mm.
"Hey, I want to show this to people." So I made a video about it. That's it. That's how my entire channel started.
Yeah.
Um
Exactly. Yeah.
and yeah, so like I had something to show. So I showed it to you and that's why I think I should get some supports because I have something to offer
Yeah.
as opposed to like, hey, I could make a YouTube channel if I just had 50 grand.
Yeah. No,
Fuck off, man.
I've seen that because there
Yeah.
was this one guy commenting on one of my videos, and he was telling me what to do on my videos. He said that he liked. I do you know? Do you watch Culpamland? Like, have you seen some of the characters? Do
Yeah.
you know?
You got that. The main character's a frog. You got that rhinoceros.
Yeah. Do
That
you know the troll,
yeah.
the blue troll, who owns the
Um.
pub?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this one guy really, and this is like I think it's still visible on my YouTube channel. This one guy really liked that character, and he hated Cordo, the green, like the main, not the main bird, but like the headmaster priest bird with like the golden collar. But his
Hmm.
channel's name, and you've seen these before, I'm sure you've seen this before. His channel's name was 0 to 1,000 subs with no videos. Have you seen those kind of channels before?
Yeah.
Have you seen those? Like, so there I did. So for some reason, I don't know why, I've spoken to so many people who want to start YouTube. Their number is always 1,000 subs, and that's because that's when you can do AdSense, isn't it? 4,000 public hours and 1,000 subs, isn't it, to become part of like the AdSense group?
Believe I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all. It's always the 1,000 because there was another guy that I was talking to on Instagram, just like because I like to know who's in the same domain type thing, you know. And
Hmm.
he again was using Adobe Character Animator, and he saw what I was doing with Blender with the backgrounds, and so he started to ask me, "Oh, how do you do it? How do you do it?" That's why I started doing the tutorials. What I've done with those now. I'm done with those now because people kept on asking me, "How do you do it? How do you do it?" I went, "Leave me alone. Here are the videos. Just leave me alone now."
Yeah.
Um, so he ended up copying my approach, and he had this weird fantasy. And I think this is one of the worst things that people think about when creating content. He had this twisted fantasy where he thought that he was going to make one video, it was going to get millions of views and subscribers, and then he was going to get rich and have a whole team working for him. He gave up after 4 months.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Do you think?
Could you walk me through it?
Do you think that kind of mentality is one of the worst things about creating content, not just on YouTube but in general?
I think it's anyone trying to use shortcuts or any form of just using a path to their own advantage and only their advantage.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the worst way to lead your life. If
literally.
you just go out and look for, like of course you need to like find opportunities, but you will get more opportunities if you actually like, create them for yourself rather than look for the button to press and or to find a pot of gold before anybody else.
Yeah,
If you actually like work and like start mining, you will be more likely to find gold than if you just wander around and see if there's any gold laying around,
or steal somebody else's
Um,
gold.
exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely. When it comes to content creating and like associating with other content creators, like I can't stand people who just, you know, try to leech off of anything, whether it's clout or just jump on trends and hoping that it's going to get rich, and then
Yeah,
get frustrated when their half-assed effort doesn't actually lead anywhere, and then they, complain that the world sucks or that they're just not lucky. Or that's not it, man. That's not it. You
yeah,
just actually have to, be passion. Passion is the number one thing that most of those people lack.
yeah.
If you don't have passion, you're never going to get anywhere with content
Passion,
creating
passion
or
and
any kind of
purpose.
learning.
Passion and purpose. What's your
Yes.
purpose? Because I find that people with passion, 90% of it is just you talking about your idea. But with purpose,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you just do it. So you need to find,
Passion, purpose, willpower to
yeah,
actually get it done. Because some people like will start the project and never get it done, or like will just get better at it and like redo the project. No, you gotta have the willpower to actually like finish it and leave it alone as well. Because some people will just hack at something forever and realize that they turn their tree that was supposed to like give them a bunch of firewood, they turn it into matchsticks,
yeah,
and then they
yeah.
became useless. Yeah,
They really want to make an apple pie because they saw someone else do it and it took them years, and they plant the seed for this huge apple tree, and then they give up because there's no apple tree the next day.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
God.
Or yeah, yeah. Or someone like watching someone doodle in their free time and be like, holy shit, they're just doodling. I could do something like that. And then they doodle and it doesn't look the same. You know why? Because that guy has been doodling for 60 years, not just randomly for the first time in his
Yeah,
life doodling on a napkin in a pub. No, the
yeah,
guy's actually putting effort and didn't just do it because they were bored one day. No,
yeah.
they actually
Exactly,
like it.
exactly.
And yeah,
There's this one guy who saw my renders, like the Culpamland backgrounds, and he was like, "Oh, you've inspired me to start using Blender and all that." I'm like, "Oh,
oh my God.
I appreciate that." And then a month later, I asked him, "So how are the renders going?" He said, "Oh, I gave up." I'm just
Yeah,
but the thing is, I tapped into Blender all the way in 2014. I tapped into it,
yeah,
Then I started dwelling more into it towards the end of university, which is 2017. And then I properly got into it in 2019 with Culpamland. And only then, after a year, when the technology came out, it was called real-time rendering, where you can actually have. So imagine if you're making a cake, and normally when you bake a cake, you have to mix the ingredients, and then you put the sponge and the icing on, you put the cake in the oven, and you hope for the best when you take it out.
right.
Real-time rendering is, imagine you're making the cake, but as you're making it, it's getting cooked at the same time. So if you don't like it,
Like 3D printing a cake.
almost, yeah. But imagine like you're putting the cakes in layers and you don't have to put it in the oven. It's just being cooked as you're making it. And you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
And if you don't like it, you could change it without any faults. You don't need to start again. But again, and even then, I started out with a Mac Mini. That doesn't even have a GPU. That's all CPU. And then I upgraded to an Alienware because I knew what I had to do based on the previous attempts that I had with Culpamland. If that makes sense.
yeah.
But so would you say that's some of the worst things where people just want to get as most people would say, get rich quick scheme? Would you say that's one of the worst things?
Yeah, yeah. There was a thought that I was having while you were
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
It kind of escaped me. I'm trying to remember it real quick. Hold
But
on. Yeah. So you're talking about that guy who gave up Blender after
yeah,
less than a month.
yeah,
Yeah, that's you're talking about Blender, and that kind of like reminded me. Like I've heard people like so many artists or wannabe artists say like, "Oh, I'm going to start Blender," and it's kind of like the same way people say, "Oh, I'm going to start going to the gym."
yeah,
Like they will go to like most people won't even get to the gym itself, but some people will go to the gym like a day or two,
yeah,
but then they'll get sore and be like, "Oh, this sucks. I need to wait until my muscles are no longer sore, so I can go to the gym again."
yeah.
And then they will, but half of them will be like, "Ah, no, it's too sore. It hurts too much," and then they'll conveniently forget to go back to the gym once they're no longer sore in their muscles.
I call it.
And that's what I feel like
I was gonna.
a lot of people do with Blender, at least,
Yeah,
or just like creating art or a YouTube channel.
yeah. I call it.
They'll like start it.
Yeah, I call it New Year's resolution syndrome, where you say,
Yeah,
"I'm gonna go to gym every
exactly,
day," and then you go for one day, as you say, and then never again.
exactly. Yeah, like that's so like saying, "Oh, I'm going to start learning Blender." That's the same thing for most artists. Is like, yeah, I'm going to start learning, but then like I get one session in, and like I'm not able to create a perfect render of Hyrule Castle from Legend of Zelda, so I
Yeah,
must suck.
yeah.
Oh, it'll take too long, and I have to do something else now. I need to walk the dog or do the laundry, so I'll
Yeah,
forget to get back to it eventually. Yeah,
that makes sense.
like
Yeah.
I've thought about starting Blender at some point, but then I didn't give up. I never started because I realized that that wasn't the type of content I wanted to create. I'm not a personal fan of creating 3D art,
Mm.
um, and I wanted to stick to more newspaper comic style.
Yeah.
So I kind of, I put my priorities elsewhere,
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
and it's
yeah, it makes
yeah,
sense because
yeah,
it would be a bit weird if you're trying to get that paper comic book feel or newspaper feel, but then you have low poly, dimly lit 3D elements. It wouldn't make sense. Like the only reason why I did 3D
exactly.
is because it's meant to be a fantasy, this utopia where people thought, oh, let's go to school and then go to university. We get a degree, then we'll get a high-paying job. That's not how it works. Like Culpamland is meant to be Neverland, and it's meant to
Right.
be palm trees. Like it's meant to be like summertime at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun is about to set, and everybody has a cider, whilst the elongated shadows um, are like all along like the freshly cut grass. If you know that, if you
I love that aesthetic so
yeah,
much. Yeah.
that's Culpman is meant to be that every single day, you know.
Yeah.
But that's the only reason why I did Blender because one, I noticed that back 2018, back the peak of the storytime animations, loads of people stating three things: lack of backgrounds, lack
Hmm.
of like the same face syndrome they call it, like the Marshmallow Boys,
Right. Right.
and the stories were a bit so and so. So those were my three priorities: make the backgrounds funky as hell, make the characters funky as hell, and make the stories engaging. And then
Mm.
from that critique that people would give, I then looked at um, how to fulfill those holes. So backgrounds, okay, I could use Blender, but the reason is why. Lots of people asking me, like on direct messenger on Instagram, people keep asking me how. I keep on asking them why. Why do you want to do this? Because if your whole thing is, oh, I want to put my name on something good and get lots of credit for it, you're not going to get it.
Ugh,
Because for a very long time,
ugh.
I don't know if you noticed, but I've removed 90% of my videos on my channel recently. Because,
Oh, I did the same.
yeah, because Cobbleman for a very long time was so shit. But through that, I was able to get to this part where it's like, I generally laugh at these now. Before, I was just going like, ugh, I made this and I just want to upload it together and done with. But now I rewatch them. I'm like, that was quite funny, because of how I listened to the people. I let the people decide what Cobbleman was and what
Yeah,
they liked about it, if that makes sense.
that does. Yeah, like, and I deleted most of my or a large portion of my videos off my channel,
Yeah,
mainly to make sure I stick in the niche
yeah,
because we were talking about this earlier in the conversation, where I kind of like deviated on tangent with my lore and stuff like that. I still kept most most of the lore, but what I took off were like the sketchbook videos that nobody actually cared about, the speed draws,
yeah, yeah. Speed
um,
draws apparently are
or some.
they're quite shit. They're quite like as you say, stink eye. You get a bit of a stink eye when you put speed videos on nowadays, do you? Because nobody does them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like nobody does them unless it's like channels dedicated to speed draws,
Yeah,
with I don't know some commentary track in the background. Like my speed draws didn't even have that. They were just like my drawing and with Kevin MacLeod video audio in the
yeah,
background. That's all I did. And I don't know why I even put them on my channel back then. But I took out all of that. I took out all the sketchbook videos, even though those sketchbook videos were like full skits with the characters bantering about the different drawings. They're just boring, and I didn't want them to mix into the French culture that is supposed to be the point of my video.
yeah,
So my real first video now is like the one about American and French schools being different,
yeah,
instead of being a sketchbook tour.
yeah. That makes sense.
Um,
Yeah. Did you see my sketchbook tour on my video?
I don't believe I have. Is it still up?
It's still up. Yeah, that one's still up. That one I'm quite happy with. I think you'll appreciate that one. It's not just me flicking
I'll.
through the pages. It's me like giving a proper analysis on why the characters are what you should do, generally speaking, what you should do, and why Culpamland is, you know.
Okay, and is it the one titled Concept Art for My Animation?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, you see, that's like even the title and the thumbnail and everything is so much more interesting than the sketchbook tours I had.
Yeah.
Mine were just titled Steven's Sketchbook Part 1, and they had like 10 drawings that had no, unifying themes among the drawings or something like that.
But that's something you learn. That's something you learn. So if you were to do another sketchbook tour, you would say, okay, this is like, maybe you do a sketchbook tour, like Inktober, as you say. Maybe you do one French, something like French related, where you say, the Frenchman says, and then some pet hate that he has towards America for your second channel. The Frenchman says he does not like so and so, and then that's because that goes around a particular topic, and it still is because I know you like your sketchbook work because I've seen your Instagram as well. You do.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for Inktober. Even though this year I'm not doing Inktober traditionally, so my first year doing it digitally.
Yeah.
And do you mind if I talk about this one video series I started and then
it's all you. It's all you. This podcast.
Okay. Yeah. So a while back I wanted to do this show kind of in the same vein as Overly Sarcastic Productions Miscellaneous Myths, but I did it with mythical creatures and tried to do like a bestiary. It's called Prime's Bestiary or Miscellaneous Monsters or something like that.
Okay.
And I did one episode about unicorns, one about mermaids, and then I never did an episode after that. Main reason is because I killed off Mr. Prime, the main host of those videos.
Yeah.
Whoopsie, I can't do those videos anymore. I wish I could. I know, really. No. I killed him off for a reason, just because I want to shelve that concept for a while. And if ever I do make those videos again about miscellaneous monsters, I will revive Mr. Prime through some lore shenanigans, but not before I'm ready. And for this year's Inktober, I'm actually doing my own prompts, and they're all mythical beasts of various kinds. So there's like unicorn, dragon, multi-headed beasts, and like I kept it open-ended for some of them, so that you could either do a Hydra for multi-head or do a Cerberus, the Hellhound. But yeah, so like just doing those Inktober's, and like I mentioned that I got a head start on them. I am creating my own identity for that miscellaneous monster show. If I end up doing it, because I don't want it to be like a copy of Overly Sarcastic Productions vibe, style, and all that. I want it to be like truly its own thing. So like maybe I'll do it in the form of a nature doc for those different monsters. Maybe I'll do it in the form of let's design some creatures with different cultures, philosophies behind the. I want to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I would want to tell any aspiring content creator: don't base your identity or your channel's identity off of copying someone else. Sooner or later, you're gonna hate doing it, and it's not gonna feel authentic anymore, and it's gonna feel more like a chore to like get into that headspace, put on that persona if you're trying to do like an Otto and Zout impression or something like that, because you think that's what will work. Which is definitely a mistake I made back when I started, because I had like just binged this whole channel before making my first video, which is probably something I shouldn't have done. Make sure that you're.
At what point, when you said you binge watched his whole channel, how long was he doing his channel for? The Odd Ones Out.
I think it was around the time he posted that Suoboy video, the first Suoboy.
It's about 2-3 years.
So, that was like 2016, so it was like 5 years ago when I started.
Oh, okay.
My channel. Yeah, it's been 5 years. Dang. But yeah, my main point is don't base your persona, your aesthetic off of someone else's, or don't like have more than one inspiration. Let's put it that way. If you have like 2-3 inspirations, that's not enough. You need like 12 and be able to not compartmentalize, but know what is influencing what and what should be put back into question instead of being like, oh, I'm going to do it because the other guy did it like this. or this way rather than come up with your own way of doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense because
That's
the amount of marshmallow people that I've seen with
oh my
the
god,
blank
yeah.
expression, the beady eyes, and they're always off to the right. You always know that he that they found a new one when they're always like shifted off to the right because of rule of thirds, and it's always it's one of those things where you could just put storytime animation, white marshmallow people, or like like just a simple figurine with no hands and like beady eyed expressions, and they can get X amount of subscribers just because they're part of this community.
Yeah.
Do you think? And I have this weird, what's the word? Not conspiracy, but this weird hypothesis in a way where do you reckon most of the storytime animators, maybe the reason why most of them are successful is because so much of the audience want to be like them?
Hmm.
Do you
I think that is partially true.
yeah,
I I would agree that I mean the main thing that makes those channels successful and why that character design is so successful is because you can project yourself on that character.
yeah,
And when that character is talking about something that you relate to, like, oh, that time I failed a math test, or oh, that time I was caught in the hallway without a hall pass,
yeah,
kids can relate to that, and especially when you like keep your content about things very relatable to young people, like first job, their first time, playing a team sport for the school or something like that. Those top or like sports or anything that is something that a kid can immediately relate to.
mm,
Of course, they're going to be successful, and of course, they're going to project themselves onto a very simplified design. It's kind of like every RPG protagonist being a silent character because
yeah,
yeah, it's the same philosophy. The simpler the design, the easier it is to project on people, and that's why I simplified my design partially.
yeah,
And I, yeah, those, and I forgot your original question, but those channels are so successful again because people are projecting themselves onto them, and when it comes to wanting to be those YouTubers, like when they see someone doing simple drawings and like say, hey, I can do simple drawings, I can talk about this stuff as well because I related to him, so I'll tell my version of the story. Like, of course, they think they can be that other YouTuber,
yeah.
um,
I think they
and it does engage people quite a lot. And there was that boom in 2016 where there were so many new animators,
yeah.
and I was part of that boom. I remember this was before like Tim Tom was big, before Tabs
yeah,
was big,
yeah.
before Ginger Pill. Like I knew Ginger Pill when he was like only at 1,000 subscribers.
Oh, really?
This was like around that same bubble of of ex- just storytime animators everywhere, and they like there's so many that were so blatant ripoffs of the odd ones out, like
The
Tim
black
Tom,
one's
for
out,
example.
wasn't it?
The black one, or yeah, it's Fox Goodman.
Yeah.
The black one's out. All those, or like Me and Myself was one of them, or Just a Sea Rabbit. And there were like some variations here. Some person had a hairstyle. Some person had a different colored shirt. And I saw that and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna have a fully colored, fully
Yeah.
designed character. I'm gonna stand out of the crowd, and that made a lot of people alienated from my videos because from a design philosophy,
Okay.
because my character was too complex
Okay.
and not you couldn't project yourself
Yeah.
as easily on a character as specific as mine. And I am a specific character. I'm a half French, half American, half stranger, foreigner, wherever I live.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I should play to my strength, and most people should play to their strength rather to just
Blend in.
try to grab the
Yeah.
general niche.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Odd Ones Out fills that general niche of like storytime animators, and like it'll work for a handful of people, for Jaden, for something else YT,
Mm.
but it can't work for everyone, and you have to find your own specific niche and not try to do general audience type thing.
Yeah.
And if you have like a very unique set of skills or perspective, that's what you should be putting forward. And I wish I had known that back then. I'd be making the same videos I'm doing now, but just sooner.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm playing to the fact that I'm both French and American. I speak both English and French. make 2 channels, one in each language. Bam. That's what I should be doing. That's what I should have done since the beginning.
Yeah, that's good. It's
Yeah.
good because it's one of those things where you couldn't know at the beginning without
Right.
going through this journey. Because like with Culpamland, I had no idea what this was, but now I do know what it is. It's me. It's me protesting against school and university. I'm making fun of it and then slowly turning into it. Because I've got two. I've got 3 channels. Technically, I've got the main one, Culpamland Animated. Then I got the podcast. But then I got a third one. I don't know you know it. It's called School Never Taught, and it's
Ah.
YouTube Shorts that I do weekly, and it just teaches you very quickly what things that school never taught. So there's ones. I think the latest one was how does a credit card work? How does tax income work?
Gotcha.
Because schools didn't teach us this. Well, it didn't teach us in England, at least. They didn't teach us like stuff about finances. How does tax income work? How does a mortgage work? So if you want to check that out later on, it's like under my main channel, under the other channels,
I just subscribed just as you were talking.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
But look at
Yeah.
that
Yeah, I'll definitely take them out.
But looking at that visual identity, um, that visual identity came from the tutorial that you saw that I made on how I create my Adobe character animated puppets.
Yeah.
It has that IKEA, because I love IKEA. It has that IKEA and Lego instruction manual vibe to it. And so, yeah, going back to your channel, what would you say the purpose of your channel was?
Was or is?
Sorry. What's the
I
purpose?
my purpose is to kind of bridge the gap between, I guess specifically between France and America, like from a cultural wise. The purpose for me is honestly, it's a lot for myself.
Yeah.
Because living in the United States for 10 years, I kind of lost my identity because I was becoming American on a French foundation.
Yeah.
And it was like I kind of assimilated too much, and it wasn't even intentional, or it wasn't me like working to like, oh, I need to fit in with Americans or anything like that.
Mm.
It was just like I was talking about earlier. I'm white. I have no accent. People think I'm from around here, and they treat me as I'm from around here.
Yeah.
And there's this cultural osmosis going on that gets me to just assume the identity of the surroundings of my environment, and it's very human, it's very normal, and I kind of want to combat that with my channel, and I want to like kind of reform my French identity, the way that I see things, see the world, because even now I'm starting to like look at American things and I forget how I would have reacted to them as a French person.
Yeah.
Like I had stopped thinking about how the Pledge of Allegiance was weird by the time I graduated.
It's still weird to me.
Like I should. It's still weird. Yeah, yeah. It was weird for like the first couple of years I was in America, but then after a while, it's like, okay, I guess this is just how it is. And I want to combat the idea of like, oh, this is just how it is, and actually like deconstruct how I think, deconstruct what parts of me are American, what parts of me are French, why do I think a certain way compared to others? Where do I fit in with Americans, and where do I not fit in?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like an introspective therapy for me with my channel. So that's my personal purpose. But then, of course, that rubs off on whoever watches my videos. Like someone who is half English, half Spanish, for example, can watch my videos and like, hey, I can't relate to that. Of course, it's not specific to being French and American, but I can like relate with the cultural headbutts that I have with people sometimes. Or I've also been gaslit by my past partner. I can relate to that for some reason.
Yeah.
I want to, kind of like my experiences are unique to myself, but I'm not the only one going through these experiences. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Like it's almost like informing other people that you're not alone, and if you're in a situation, this is how I dealt with it. You might feel this way, and this is how you could approach it if you're being. Because my first girlfriend was very abusive towards me, like pretty much like gaslighting and all that. It got really bad. So and that was when I was like, God, 14, 15, and I'm 27 now. And it's one of those things where, because I was so busy with, every 2 years I was in a new place. I lived in a place called Canterbury in England. Then I moved back to London to do my A-levels. That's SATs for you Americans out there. Then I did a foundation course in a different part of the country. Then I went to university. And because I was so busy, I didn't take the time, and I couldn't take the time to really understand, okay, what happened? Make sure that it doesn't happen again. And sometimes these videos, this is also why I created the relatable videos on Culpamland as well, where you're not the only one who's going through this. So let me help you understand what may have happened, and this is what you could do. I'm guessing that's
Right.
what you mean.
Yeah, it's exactly what I mean. But also it's as a way, like if I make a video about it, make something tangible that is easy to consume, like just a 10-minute video or a 5-minute video. It's a lot more effective to like work on that than to like do write something in my diary and like, hey, this is what I learned, don't repeat that mistake.
Yeah.
Because a diary is going to be like stuck at the bottom of a shelf one day.
Yeah.
And I might forget the lesson that I learned from that failed relationship or from that encounter with an American that was particularly annoying or something like that. Whereas if I make a video about it, I'll continuously get comments on that video, or be reminded of the lesson that I learned, and I will, like, since I have to make a video about it and like articulate all the points in a specific way to like hit all the marks in a short amount of time, that is very therapeutic for those negative experiences that I end up making a video about.
It's funny.
It really helps. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned diary, because I do coding, like websites coding as well, and there's almost like this saying, and there's like this custom that most coders, like coding people, have. So we tend to speak to an object, because in our minds, what we think is logical when spoken out loud is illogical. So you talking about the diary, as you say, it may just end up being at the bottom of a bookshelf. You possibly may be writing this in a very illogical sense, but until spoken out loud in a video gives it a logical sense, and then you concluding this story. Because I feel like the situation with most relationships is that you meet someone, you have fun, something bad happens, and that's it. Like, there is no true end. So by having this almost like a send-off, like when the Vikings, when somebody died, they would put them on a raft and shoot an arrow. It's like this peaceful send-off, like this, I'm over it now.
It's about closure.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. So going back to the coding thing, we normally use rubber ducks, like the little yellow, put them on the side of the desk, and you speak to it. Because, again, what you think is logical in your mind when you're doing the coding, you say it out loud, you go, oh, that sounds so stupid, like when you speak it out loud. But because of how what you thought was logical was actually illogical. So that video, although maybe there's a part of you that thinks because it's about you, maybe part of you feels like you're a bit, what's the word? Not pretentious, but because it's about you and your girlfriend, you feel like, oh, like, should I be doing this? Should I be over it by now? Mm-hmm. But that's also kind of the point where you could be giving so much advice towards someone who doesn't even know that they're going through it.
Exactly.
I wish,
like, I would hate anyone to go through what I went, and that's kind of exactly why I want to make a video about it. Well, I guess I'll give it to make it public domain. This advice is going to be for everyone now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because you never know. For you, it could just be just a video, but for somebody else, it could be that eureka moment. Because I wish, and again, it's one of those things where you don't know until you actually go through it. But I wish I had videos like this when I was younger that made me realize, hang on, my girlfriend shouldn't be saying stuff like this to me. She shouldn't be doing that stuff. This is horrible.
Right.
Yeah. So with the podcast is to hear these stories, because what most people do when they're creating something, or whenever they're in a new situation, like in your relationship, they don't know which way is north, so they've
Right.
recalculated their compass to actually point south. So they end up taking the long way around, and it takes them like years, and then you find north. So with these videos,
Eventually, yeah.
is you saying actually north is that way. To you, it's just a
Yeah.
video, but for
Yeah.
them, you're going actually north is that way, and you go, oh, thanks, and then they can help out because I'm sure you got other stories as well, or maybe there's a moral at the end of each video you have where even though we're a French person living in America, we still need to consider X, Y, Z. So stuff like that,
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
maybe that's your thing. Maybe you're what do you call it? Someone who writes maps or draws maps, chart. I don't know. Someone like a navigator. Maybe you're like, okay, I went through this. Here's north. You're going west. Go up here. Like, what's your situation? Yeah, you're being gaslighted. Do this, this, and this. If that makes
Yeah, and
sense.
maybe it's not like akin to making maps, but more like being the guy who is like at a pit stop and is like,
Yeah,
"Hey, do you
yeah,
want to? We have a compass here. Do you want to look at it for a second? Like, make sure you're not
yeah,
going in the wrong direction for 10 more days." Yeah, so it's kind of like, and of course, since I'm talking about my experience and it could help someone else,
yeah,
it's more like I would say, "Hey, here are some tricks I did to make sure I didn't get lost
yeah.
in all this. Maybe these will help you. Maybe you're not doing these and you haven't thought of it. Maybe you have been doing these but haven't been working out, and maybe this is why.
Yeah,
So maybe it's not the map maker, but it's the guy who's like stopping and is like, hey, by the way, you're holding it upside down.
yeah, like
Like I
a Boy Scout type thing, where
yeah
like a survival
yeah
guide.
yeah
Yeah,
like like maybe the person is holding it the right way up. I'm like, hey, one thing I did was holding the map upside down. Make sure it doesn't happen to you. Like, hey, remember to drink water
yeah,
when you've been walking for that long. Um, so it's kind of like that, and I hope that my videos help more than they don't. Even though I just described earlier my channel as being sassy or sarcastic,
yeah.
um, that doesn't mean that I'm mean-spirited
No,
necessarily. Like I said, I'd take the gloves off in my
yeah,
for my future videos, but it's not to harm. It's to like open the eyes of Americans who are usually ethnocentric, thinking about their own culture and their America's number one mentality. Because if you like, that's my main issue with the Americans is that they have this number one mentality,
yeah,
or a lot of them do, or act like they do. Um, and if you think you're number one, why would you train to be better?
yeah. That's
You
true.
know,
That's true.
like why would you try to like most people who are number one don't maintain their stat like they don't do anything to maintain their status and then they get surprised when someone surpasses them eventually.
Yeah,
So like America, first democracy in the world, um, debatable, but good for you. You created your democracy 200 years ago when there was no other democracy to show an example. When France created their democracy, when they after the the reign of terror and all
yeah,
that, we created a democracy which is better than Americans because they had something else to base off of it. And they were able, like, honestly, I prefer democracy in France than in America. It doesn't feel very democratic in America anymore. And that's the type of thing that I want to point out to Americans, like, okay, America number one, strongest military, strongest army, or most funded army, I guess.
mm.
Okay, most funded doesn't mean the best, strongest army. Can we, you know, analyze that, for example?
Yeah.
It's that. That's what I want my channel
That makes sense.
to
Yeah,
help accomplish.
thought provoking and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more like philosophy, I guess.
Is that
I
where
want to be poetic about it.
you see your channel in 5 years, where you're being more informative rather than just content creating? Like people come to you for, to some extent, credible advice.
Yeah, credible advice. I don't necessarily think that my channel will be like a library that someone can like look up a topic and be like, okay, this is the information I need.
Yeah.
Rather be like, look up a topic. Okay, what questions should I be asking about this topic?
Yeah.
Does
Okay.
that make
That
sense?
makes sense. Yeah. More conceptual rather than analytical, in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like how, like, so like I said that I'd be more comfortable described as instead of like a cultural exchange channel, more like a cultural philosophy channel.
Yeah.
Um,
So you don't want to
that
be
makes sense.
Vsauce or anything like that, where people
Yeah.
People come up.
I don't want people to look at my videos and be like, "Oh, he has this stance on this subject." I'll be like, "Oh, wait, he's asking this questions. Can we answer them?" So like, I won't be like attacking Americans and their love of firearms and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But there are a lot of issues around firearms. Let's ask these questions of like consistency. For example, you know, uh, Americans still use the imperial system of measurement instead of metric. Why? Why?
yeah,
uh, America loves the fact that they seceded from the British Empire, got their independence and all that. They got rid of the monarchy. Why did they not get rid of the British imperial system?
that's true.
Why?
Yeah, that's true.
If you want to get rid of the empire, get rid of the thing that holds the name of the empire. Just saying.
Yeah, true. God. But that's cool because I do. What one thing I noticed with you and your channel is that speak like not, I haven't spoken to every single content creator out there, but for you can get a general
You haven't?
idea. Sorry,
You haven't talked to
I
everyone?
haven't. No, I have not. No. Um. Uh. I haven't. So one thing I've gathered with you, you're definitely more. You definitely have more passion. I would say you definitely have more heart compared to most content creators, where most people are saying, "Oh, I haven't uploaded in X amount of days." Well, your one, it's I need to spend time on it when it's ready, but with love, not just dismissively. You know, does that make sense? Where you see some content creators where um, you could tell that they didn't spend too much time on it. You can tell that they're getting a bit burnt out. But with you, especially, like the fact that you're taking time off, revamping your work, suggesting that maybe a second channel is appropriate for another niche. Like I feel like you're almost, almost like as though you're excavating what the people want as opposed to necessarily what you want. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there are two ways to go about it. You can throw shit at the wall until something sticks,
Yeah,
or you can like figure out what am I good at throwing and how can I make what I'm throwing stick.
yeah,
You know, like if I throw a tomato at the wall, it'll like smash and like fall to the ground. But if I like carve out my dart or my arrow,
yeah,
like I'm sure it's gonna stick to the wall and I can use it to climb up the wall and get
yeah,
over the thing instead of like making a pile of crap that will like build up against the wall and become a mount that you can overcome. Uh, use it as a platform to
yeah.
jump off of. I don't know.
No, it makes sense because I always
That's my lost there.
I always think of that. You must have seen this image of a bunch of people pushing a like a heavy cube along the desert,
Right.
but then
Yes. Exactly.
there's that one guy who pushed it and molded it into a giant ball. So he spent a bit of time starting, but now he's pushing on by.
Right. Exactly. And he might have less to like. If the point of hypothetically those people are bringing these blocks
Yeah,
to use as raw materials for whoever's on the other side of that field, he might at the end also arguably bring back less raw material to work with.
yeah,
Less, he did it in like half the time. He can then go back to bring another boulder like in the same amount of time it took him to bring the first one. Was most people are still working on the first boulder, and that's kind of like the philosophy I got in my revamp on my channel.
yeah,
It's like I'm creating all these pre-made assets like that I can reuse them instead of like working on this one animation for a half a year, uploading it, and then start from scratch for the next animation.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
I mentioned just today that I'm reusing the same backgrounds for the French video
mm,
compared to the American video. The same background characters can be reused for both channels. I don't even have to have a second, an avatar for the French version of the channel. I could have taken the easy way and just do a dub and just use the same character, and just call it French Pineapple en français, French version. But no, I decided to like have its own identity, make it something a little, and that's like pure indulgent. Like if I was
yeah,
thinking all about the bottom line, like how much time is spent, I would have like literally just dubbed the video.
yeah.
I wouldn't have to reanimate it. But no, I'm gonna animate two videos,
Yeah, yeah. And
and
if it, worst case scenario, you just end up dubbing it. That's the very worst case
yeah,
scenario. Just dub it.
yeah, exactly. But I still want to have this extra level of of cheekiness in my French version.
Yeah.
This extra level of like, hey, this was made for the French audience, rather than being like, oh, I translated it for you so that I could like get more views out of the
Yeah.
same video. No, I don't want that. I really want it to feel like this video was made from scratch in French, just like the video was made from scratch in English. I wrote both videos at the same time.
Okay.
Not translating them. I recorded them in the same day, and I am animating them one after the other. And like I could like do it in any order. Do the French one first or the American one first. It will feel the same for each video. That like this one was made from the ground up with no other video being the basis for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gives it that extra bit of care and attention, as opposed to you see certain channels where they just get clips on their main channel, like Joe Rogan. He just get clips of highlighted moments and just puts on another channel. You want it to be a bit more love and care with that.
Right. Yeah. I want to like this way. I'm actually giving a relationship with the French audience as opposed to just being like, oh, we're getting a translated thing of an American show.
That makes sense. Yeah.
No, it's gonna be like, hey, this was created for us with our mentality in mind, and this guy's trying to connect with us. He's a French guy who's lived in America for 10 years. He probably doesn't know what's going on in France at this point now. So like we can comment on his videos, and he will like be able to react to some things, or like he'll ask us questions during the video, and we'll answer those, and he will actually like get us engaged rather than being, again, a dubbed American production.
Yeah. Can I got a question here from the fan, the fans, like one of my few fans. Why the name the French Pineapple?
Why is the name the French Pineapple?
Yeah.
Well, when I first moved to the United States, I've told this story before, but I don't think it's anywhere online at this point. When I first moved to the United States, I was, talking to this girl, and we were having an argument, and apparently I was having a very prickly personality throughout it. Yeah. So she called me like, hey, okay, shut up, Steven the Pineapple. And I was like, pineapple, what is that? Some American slur I don't understand? Like, is that something I should know? And she's like, no, I just thought of something that's prickly because you're kind of like.
So if she called you
right now,
if she called you Cactus, Steven the Cactus, would you call it the French Cactus?
I don't know, but I asked her like, why pineapple and not something else prickly? Why not the hedgehog or the echidna or like
porcupine or something?
Maybe. Yeah, exactly. Like if that would have happened, I might have had a Sonic OC as character. But no, she called me the pineapple.
Got to go French.
She thought about. Gotta go French.
Yeah.
But yeah, she chose pineapple because she's thinking I'm French and French people are exotic.
Yeah, and apparently,
She thought of the first exotic fruit, and so she called me Steven the Pineapple, and then Steven the Pineapple became the French Pineapple, to make it a little more French as opposed to a pineapple, which is not even from France. They're native to Indonesia.
Yeah, I was about to say
Hawaii. Yeah, and so it was just some dumb nickname / insult that was used for half a second
in a heated debate
in middle school, and I just took it as my identity because it had a nice ring to it. Steven the Pineapple, the French Pineapple.
The French Pineapple.
And I used it like at first as like a screen name for so long that when I created my channel, I was like, oh, I might as well call it the French Pineapple,
Yeah.
So I had it like when I was admin for like a YouTube page or something like that. I called myself Steven the Pineapple. Then when I created my webcomic, it was the French Pineapple, and then it turned to my YouTube channel. So that's the origin of that.
That's your origin story as the superhero you are.
Right. Yeah, it's my Batman, a bat flying through the window moment. Someone calling me a pineapple.
Is that what is that how you present yourself, say, in those situations with as a channel federator? And is it kindergarten that you went to?
That was that was during the same time period. The Federator meetup and the kindergarten were the same. time period. That was like within. I think that was in 2017. I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. Was that cool? Because it seems really cool. That's the type of thing I would like to do.
That was a lot of fun, and I was very privileged to, just know the right people at the right time because I had like 2,000 subscribers back then.
Oh, really?
But I was just associated with Tabs and Gingerbread, who had just gotten huge at the time.
Yeah,
And one of my friends, Ivan, from Ivan Animated,
yeah.
he was best friends with someone who worked there, a gentleman named Adrian.
Okay.
And he like we were planning to meet up in New York because a lot of people just lived in that city and within the kindergarten. And
Mm.
Ginger Pell, who was associated with Channel Frederator at the time, was like, "Hey, I'm going to be in New York. Do you mind if I visit your office with a few friends?" And then Frederator was like, "Hey, let's make a meetup for you guys." I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay, I guess." And it just kind of happened. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I feel nostalgic for that time back when I was just out of high school.
Yeah.
Started a YouTube channel, had a lot of friends. Everybody kind of went their own way once the animation bubble kind of burst.
Yeah.
Um,
I can imagine because
a
it
lot of
seems
people
like
stopped.
because I was talking to Michael J, and he would talk about those moments where you guys would go to California, go to Cali, and get like a big house. I don't know if you went there yourself, but it does seem like
Yes, yeah,
you did go.
yeah, yeah. I went to California twice.
Oh, okay.
The first time was great. Second time it was like right after the bubble had burst.
Yeah.
Things were like a little bit awkward and like there were cliques forming, and it was kind of felt like the I don't know, but yeah, to go back to your point,
Yeah.
that was around the same time there were these huge houses. We each got like Airbnbs in small groups, but like at this one point there was a, a party in a mansion or something that was associated with Michael J and Kurt Ritchie's group,
Yeah.
and that's where like honestly those were the best parts of the con. We went for VidCon, but we were on the most enjoyable moments were just hanging out with people having a party. It wasn't about like networking or like, oh, how many subscribers did you gain since last time? Like, oh, do you want to do a collab? No, it was just when we were hanging out and getting drunk and having a good time with our friends.
Yeah. That
Um,
sounds more like it. Yeah.
that was my favorite parts. And like, if I ever go back to California, I'm not even gonna get a VidCon ticket. I'm just gonna go there to be with my friends when they're all in the same place.
Yeah. Is VidCon
My
any good? I haven't been there myself.
VidCon's all right. Really depends what you go there for, I guess.
Hmm.
It can be really interesting to like go to different panels to learn things from different content creators. You could go there to just like network and find other people within the same niche or stuff like that, or you could go there just to like hang out with friends. And the con itself, the first time around, it was fun. It was a little bit mismanaged. We had some issues. The animators, we were like doing this meet and greet signing panel, and it was like a complete shit show. Um, like 3,000 people showed up, and only like half of them were able to go through the panel before it ended because there was like such a huge line.
Yeah.
And
Apparently, security is quite uptight in those
right,
situations.
right, and like I was just hanging out with people, with some of my few subscribers that actually came to VidCon,
Yeah.
and I was dragged out because I was associated with the bigger people. Like I
Yeah.
think Tim Tom was in the area at the same time. I was just hanging out with my friends and so on. Talking to people standing in line to go to this meet and greet, which we would be a part of.
Hmm.
But then we were dragged out by security, like, hey, yeah, you guys can't, just stand out in the hall. And again, I was not even big at that time. I had like 5,000 subscribers or
Yeah.
something, and I was, treated as if I was doing something wrong and gonna get, reprimanded by security for like, why are you so responsible, just like causing a mob, when I was like not the cause of the mob myself. I was hanging out with my friends was
Yeah.
part of the problem
I,
for VidCon.
is that a common problem um where maybe for you see it more as hanging out with friends, but do you reckon there are certain people who subconsciously they saw it more as a business association?
Yeah,
Is there kind of that
yeah,
tension there?
and that's one thing that I sometimes blame it on being, from a different culture or something like
Yeah.
that. But so in France, people, they are the way they are. They don't put up a mask for social situations
Yeah.
as much. If they think you're an asshole, they're gonna,
Say it. Yeah.
give you the cold shoulder in public. Whereas in America, it's a lot of like, oh my God, love your dress. Oh my God, she's such a bitch.
Yeah, I know that.
But like it's just a lot of that. And like I was naive. I was going in my French mindset. It's like, oh, if these people don't like me, they will,
They'll
tell
say
me.
it. Yeah.
But no. Or if these people don't like each other, they will tell each other. But no, like all these people are like, acting nice. And but turns out during that first VidCon that I thought was like a great time, everybody was super happy and having fun. There was a lot of fucking background drama that I did not know I was even a part of. And
Really.
like hearing about all these people calling each other assholes and in behind closed doors, it was really jarring. I was like, God damn it! And so it like turns out that a lot of people are like picking up. It's not just about whether you're acting like your friends or not acting like your friends. It's also like people acting like your friends when you're not secretly hating them, but when you're secretly trying to get clout and stuff like that. Like I
Yeah.
can't even imagine. I went in there like not even thinking that was a possibility. I think I was naive and just wanted to hang out with my friends, whereas some people were causing drama because they wanted clout. And the second time I went to VidCon, that was so obvious to me, and I wish I'd seen it the first time. But
Mm.
I had stayed in this house with this one person who was a lot smaller content creator than even me, and I consider myself small, but they were 100% there for the clout.
Oh, really?
And like this person had was in the room with James, the autumn was out,
Yeah.
for like 30 seconds, and like or in a voice chat or something like that for 30 seconds, and like they talked for a little bit, and they kind of like created this fantasy that James was really looking forward to seeing them, and like every time they would go to VidCon, they were like searching for James.
Uh,
I won't tell you who this person is because
yeah. Yeah.
privacy. But like they were so obsessed with being friends with James because they had like this fantasy of that James was their secret best friend
Yeah.
now because they talked for like 30 seconds, and it was so obnoxious, and I could not stand it, and it kind of like ruined the whole experience for me because every time that a small friend group that actually was friends with James or was going somewhere, I had to hear this person complain like, oh, how they were not invited on purpose because like those people hate them and I'm trying to get
I
like
would have
ruin their
just
friendship
slapped
with
their
me.
head. You know.
Yeah, it's like, dude, like, no, you talked with James once. You're not his best friend. Just chill. Like, if you run into James, run into James, but don't make your whole purpose of being at VidCon to like be best friends with James.
Yeah.
And like, they don't even realize they're self-sabotaging at that point. But I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I did not feel that the first time around when I went to VidCon, but the second time it was so obvious.
It's a shame because
And
I feel like I would have gone through the exact same thing. Like the first time you're like, oh my god, let's go to the beach. Oh my god, but then all of a sudden you just realize that the apple on the other side is all rotten. You're like, oh for fuck's sake, I just wanted to have fun. Just those
right,
situations.
yeah,
It was like that in my
yeah,
university where everyone's pre-drinking before they go out clubbing, and then you start to hear whispers, and then somebody next to you says, "Oh, apparently she did this and she did that," and you're like, "Oh, I just came here for a drink. Like, don't bring that high school drama here." It's
right, yeah. It's exactly like high school. Like all these artists were probably not very sociable in high school,
yeah,
and myself included. So they're like living through the high school uh, experience of like popular kids versus the alternative crowd and
yeah,
stuff like that. It's all that that they didn't experience in high school is being experienced within their world of YouTube animation art slash everything
yeah,
else. Because everyone is like you're the cool kid within that group if you can like draw well, if you have a good amount of subscribers, or if
yeah,
you know how to animate and stuff like that. You become the cool kid, or if you're like friends with the other animator and like, oh, I am a moderator for this
yeah, yeah.
famous YouTuber's Discord or something like that, and it feels fucking stupid.
Is it so? I
But it's
imagine.
exactly like high school.
Yeah, I imagine myself where, you know, because I heard this like once or twice where somebody wanted to talk for like careers advice on what to do in design, and somebody tagged me on Twitter saying, "Oh, Culpamland, the guy who does Culpamland, he creates cool animations." And the guy said at the time when he had 300 subscribers, and I think the guy responded, "The guy only has 300 subscribers. Why would I talk to him?" And they're just like, Jesus Christ! Like, despite the fact that I went,
That's ruthless.
yeah, despite the fact that he didn't know this, but despite the fact that I went to a prestigious university, top 20 in the country, top 100 in the whole wide world, but because of the numbers, he was like, "Why should I talk to him? What the fuck?" You know, so, like that game never leaves, does it? It never leaves. Like,
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It only gets worse.
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Jeez, but
Yeah, I tend to stay away from Twitter
oh yeah,
and Discord servers mostly because of the drama and all that. And it's kind of like hurt me in a professional sense because I don't really talk to people in the animation community as much anymore.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's a kind of a blessing in disguise because I'm not like worrying about what kind of content my
yeah,
other people are making, or like, oh, who can I be in a collab with and stuff like that.
yeah,
Whose channel can I be featured on? Like, I'm just creating the content I genuinely want to fucking create, and that's so relaxing. Even though I'm not, living off of YouTube or anything like
yeah.
that, I'm building my empire every day without having to worry about social.
Yeah, yeah.
And pardon my language. I know
No,
I've
it's
been
fine, it's
cursing
fine.
for the past, a little bit. Um, but my God, yeah, if everyone would just fucking shut the fuck up. Like, I don't want to quote Bo Burnham, but if anyone could just shut the fuck up and just create the content, just do the content you say you want to make instead of like worrying about who you're gonna be friends with. And honestly, like VidCon and stuff like that, it kind of like brings out the worst in people.
Yeah, I
from
thought
what
so.
I've seen.
Yeah, I thought so. It's almost like an ego competition
It kind of
test.
like, right, it kind of like, it really depends who you're friends with and like what you want to get out of VidCon. I don't know if I would recommend going to VidCon to people, but if you're wondering about like, oh, if your goals are like, oh, I need to meet these people, I need to become friends with these people, like, okay, that's one thing.
But then even then,
maybe
you want to be
you
their
don't,
friends for a particular reason, and it's not quite an
right,
honest reason, you know.
and you don't necessarily need to go to VidCon to do that. You can contact them if they want to contact you back. It won't change because you're face to face with them.
Yeah,
Like, if you send like the odd ones out an email and he doesn't reply, it's not going to change if you like meet him in person and say like, "Oh my gosh, I love your stuff. We should be friends." It's not going to change. It's going to be more awkward.
like,
if anything, and it's going to be more
I've had that where somebody says, "Can we be friends?" What do you mean by that? Like you don't see that in. I would never go up to someone, and maybe I'll say it as a joke. Maybe if I'm a bit drunk and tipsy, like you meet someone on a night out, like for a joke, but I would
Right.
never go up to anyone and generally say, "Can we be friends?" Like, you're an acquaintance at best if you said hello to them a few times. Like, I have some acquaintances at the gym. I never said, "Can we be friends?" I'll say maybe you give a nod at someone or a thumbs up and that's it. But because I've had this where some guy saw one of my videos stating, "Oh my god, your work is so underrated. Can we be friends?" And I'm thinking, so you want to be my friend because you have a feeling that I might do well in the future and you want to be there on my shoulder? Is that what it is? You know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, the main thing that a lot of people need to realize is that a lot of friendships, not all of them, of course, but a lot of friendships are one-sided, and most people don't realize it.
yeah.
So, given the fact that a lot of friendships are one-sided, if you go in begging for a friendship from a person who doesn't know you,
You're not going to get it.
even, even if they do agree, it's probably going to be one-sided for like half a second. Like, they'll say, "Yeah, sure, I'll be your friend," but they won't actually be your friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because friendship is built through, trust, it's common, shared experiences,
And
loyalty,
years of
uh,
loyalship.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, and reliance and like compatibility and just chemistry and stuff like that. And like that's how people become friends.
Yeah.
They don't like like if you, you know, if anyone, or if like for example you just like showed up in my Instagram saying like, hey, do you want to be my friend? Like,
No.
I would have looked at you weirdly, but like, um, just like you and I have never spoken before
Yeah.
today, uh, but like I already consider you more of a friend than anyone who's ever commented in my videos,
Yeah.
even a dozen times. Hey, do you want to be my? Hey, can we be friends? Like, no, no, like I actually like enjoy talking to you right now,
Yeah.
but a guy who shows up in my inbox saying I want to be your friend, like that's just gonna like kill your chances more.
So now I'm gonna send you that at like really awkward hours in the morning for you. Can you be my friend, please?
Dude,
Because I remember
I dare you.
I first spoke to you because I noticed that you had character animator, Adobe Character Animator. I think it was via Twitter. I said lol character animator question mark, and you're like yeah, because that's
Yeah,
kind of like a thing that I approach people with, like oh geez character animator, and then it was I sent you that because you showed your on your Instagram, you showed your sketchbooks, and it reminded me of that weird Bible. I forgot what it was called. Remember that weird book I showed you
yeah,
on
yeah.
Google? It
I
had like
remember
the
it.
really weird creatures, and I went oh, like as a fellow person who probably appreciates design, I reckon you would appreciate this, even if it was just like. Even if he didn't respond, I would say he probably is looking at that and probably went, "Okay, that I can see why he did that." But I'm sure you appreciated it.
Yeah, there you go. Shared experiences or like
Yeah,
common interests.
yeah,
That's how people like get to know each other.
literally, yeah,
Um,
literally. But there's also that talking about common interests. You do have to be careful with that because maybe the common interest is your work. So let's say somebody likes me
yeah,
because of Culpamland. Like, I, if you like Culpamland, like, cool, great. I have a particular kind of humor, and for a very long time, my personality and humor wasn't quite replicated throughout Culpamland. Unlike now, where it's more in your face, more expressive, more to the point. But I would not want because this happened with me in university, where I was friends with someone just from the sole factor that we both didn't quite like the course. That was the only reason why we were friends. And that's a very bad relationship because when university ended, we had nothing to talk about. So it was pretty much expired. And the problem was he saw it as well, but he didn't want to accept it because he wasn't very good at making friends. So after a year from after we graduated, he was still talking about the course. And I'm telling him, it's over. Like, why are you still talking? It's gone. Like, we graduated. We have jobs.
hmm
So there is that
That's a
fact.
one-sided friendship.
Yeah, exactly. There is that factor. And there was also. So with me, I'm one of those rare content creators who's actually extroverted. You
hmm
see most animators, especially. I wouldn't call myself an animator, but that's why I generally said a content creator. Like I did part-time modeling. I'm good with people, so people see this and they say, "Oh, I can get me some of that." Like if I'm his friend and he could
hmm
do all the heavy lifting for me, then I can just sneak in and get the credit. And I've had people literally say, "James, I want to work with you." That's my, my name is James, right?
I just found out.
Okay, because he kept on saying James for the odd ones out, and I was like, wait, oh yeah, James. So my name is James. Um,
That's funny.
yeah, and that's another fact I want to bring up. So I had a friend who would say, because this is after university as well. He said, "Oh, our other two friends are teaming up. I want to team up with you, James, because you can do all the work and I get the cut." I just you, But he generally meant it. Like he generally meant I do all the heavy lifting, like Corpelman style, and then he gets the credit. So there is that factor of what's a friendship, what's networking, and then what's just being toxic. That's where I'm
Yeah.
very picky. Like that's why I make it very clear what my mission is, because my mission isn't going to be the same as anybody else's mission, where their mission is just get numbers, or their mission is just upload whenever you want. Do your parents know that you do YouTube?
Yeah, they're aware. They don't really understand it, or they have like they try to ask me questions, but they growing up, I was always the artist of the family.
Yeah.
I have a lot of older siblings, and I come from a military family, so everyone that I'm related to has at some point in their life been in the military. And if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that even I've been in the
Yeah, I saw
military.
that. Yeah.
Why is that? Because my parents did not trust that art would or my creations would ever amount to anything,
Yeah.
and be like, oh, well, it's a hobby. And if they think about like making money for your art as like, oh, you sell your canvases, your landscape paintings at a little stand
Yeah.
on the street
Yeah.
at
Yeah. Literally.
festivals, stuff like that. Like, yeah, no. Now I can like literally get hired for doing what I've been doing. I'm literally, like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna be paid to do a class on character animator. This is not just, oh, I'm making doodles in my sketchbooks
Yeah.
anymore. This is me who is able to learn a skill, perfect it, and get paid for that skill. Like I'm getting paid now to teach it to others, but I can also, and I'm thinking about doing this, selling my abilities for character animator, being like, hey, do you want me to animate your animated skit? I can do that in character animator for you if you want. And like
Yeah.
and this is something I'm keeping for after I start my reboot of my channel.
Hmm.
So I kind of like market my skills and like become a little bit of an entrepreneur. And that's not something my parents ever thought I could ever do with art. And they're like, hey, we're gonna send you to the army with some amount of blackmail to make sure you actually go.
God.
So that you don't become homeless, and like I wouldn't become. They legit don't understand
Yeah. Yeah.
that there's so much that can be sold over the internet.
Yeah. It's crazy,
Like
isn't it?
anything can become a skill. Anything can become something marketed as long as you put the effort into it.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah. Because I know there's so many parents out there, or so many people who are saying, "Oh, I want to do animation, but my parents say this, my parents say that." But countering that, yes, pursue your dream, but countering that, I've also met so many people who want to succeed in a false environment, meaning their parents are paying for the bills, house bills, mortgage, all that, and the children want to gain success now because they are able to not worry about those said bills, and they are
Right.
able to succeed in this false environment of school. For instance, I have an ex-girlfriend who was really good at art, like better than me. She got like distinction star, meaning that all the modules got distinctions in them. She gained success in a false environment because now what she does is she dresses up like a witch and runs into the. I'm being serious here. She has a bunch of friends, runs into the woods dressed up as a witch and like travelers, and then they join Extinction Rebellion riots.
Is that a job?
Like, I don't know. It's something. It makes me laugh either way.
Is that like a flash mob Renaissance fair type thing?
I don't know.
I
But it just shows you that there is this disconnect, and this is what Culpamland is. Do you know what the Reformation is?
the religious Reformation.
The religious
the
Reformation,
Protestant
yes.
Reformation? Yeah, the Protestant one.
Yeah, that's what Culpamland is. So much like how you want to bridge the two cultures together, I want to bridge people to reality. These are the bills you're going to have to pay. Hence why Creative School never taught. These are situations that you're going to be in. This is what you're doing now. You're worried about whether your crush fancies you. You're worried about whether people notice that your shoes are a bit run down. You're worried about the fact that you didn't go to that party that everyone else is going to. What you should be worrying about is how finances work. And I did well in school. Like I said, I went to a prestigious university, but I knew it was all fake. I knew this whole thing was fake with the whole getting the high mark but then you come back to reality and you realize, oh, that degree didn't really do much. They did not teach.
Dude,
Yeah, Karen.
I can't wait. I can't wait to tackle American universities in my in my videos. Oh my God.
Jeez.
If anything's fake, it's the education system in America. Like half of the education budget isn't even spent on the education that's supposed to be taking place. It's spent on like bullshit, school teams,
Yeah.
school sports like football, baseball, basketball, all the balls, and like spent on clubs, on extracurriculars to like put on your resume to make it look better, or put on your college application
Yeah.
or whatever. It's so bad. It's so bad, and like it really creates a generation of employees rather than entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Do you have any last words before we say goodbye? Like, if you could conclude everything you have learned in a few words. So from the beginning, any mistakes you've made that you don't want other people to go through in terms of YouTube and content creating.
I guess I'll say this. What's most important for any success in content creation is having your own identity, and your own identity won't be able to come out unless you give it room to grow. So don't be one of those people that hold back on their ideas because they're not good enough to create them yet.
Yeah.
You have to like start from literally nothing. You don't ever blame anyone but yourself for the lack of output you've created. Don't say like, oh, I didn't have enough money, I didn't have the skill yet. You won't get that skill, you won't get that money handed to you. You gotta actually put the effort in, and your own. Even if you get inspired by other people, make sure that they are not the aesthetic you're going after. Like, don't be that type of person who watches a TV show and then acts like the main character
Yeah.
of that TV show, like for the next week until like you find a new TV show. If you create your channel or your content in that lens, you're going to eventually get bored of that persona because it's not truly you. So make sure that you actually know who you are, what you're trying to do with your content before you put it out. That said, don't take forever to put it out.
Yeah, I was about to say, like,
It seems kind of contradictory.
at the same time,
It seems,
put something out there so you learn something.
yeah, exactly. Like, what you are going to put out eventually, like at the beginning, isn't going to be your magnum opus. And don't
Yeah.
try to make it your magnum opus. Don't try to think that this will be your only chance at a YouTube channel. Like, you can just create a new one, a second one. I'm creating a second one eventually nowadays, without replacing my first one. But I know that the content I made back at the beginning of my channel isn't the same it is now. You don't have to worry about that. Just make the content that feels the most genuine. And don't create what you think people want. Create what you know you want, and let that guide what you do later.
Yeah.
Because if you're working like just thinking like, oh, what trend do I need to follow, you're going to fall off the wagon before you can even get your iteration of that trend out.
And also start with what you do know.
Yeah.
And then work on what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And don't try to perfect your one project at a time. Like, okay, here's this one analogy that I wish I'd heard earlier.
Yeah.
There's a pottery class. There are two groups of students who are given different assignments for the entire semester. One group is supposed to make the most beautiful vase they've ever made. They have to like make it perfect. They have to spend the entire semester on one vase. The second group of students are told, make 100 vases by the end of the semester. Don't care how good they are, just make 100 of them. Who do you think ended up making the better vase?
The 100 vase one.
Yes, the group that did 100 vases.
Yeah.
Because they learned along the way. They made a bunch of shit vases. They made like the worst vases you've ever seen, but also made the best ones because they didn't like overthink every aspect. They didn't let their clay dry in the wrong way early on, and they were able to get something done. Just finish it. Just finish a project. Keep it simple. Keep it short, easy, and fun.
Definitely.
If you can't do anything else, short, easy, and fun. That's the secret sauce. Just get something out there, and then get something out immediately after. Just work on it over and over and create new things. My next video is probably not going to be my best video, even though it's along the way of me getting my new identity, my soft reboot on my channel, rework and all that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the best version of that, and I know it. And like I finished the English version of that video already. I'm going to work on the French version. And I already know like there are 500 things I could do better in the next video. I'm not going to spend my time reworking that one video over and over again until it's perfect. I'm going to move on to the next one and have more attached to my name rather than just hoping that'll be a one-hit wonder.